So today we are jumping into a mission that on the surface sounds pretty simple, but it has these really radical implications. We're doing a deep dive into the conceptual framework of a piece of literature called The Architecture of Thought and Form.
Yeah, that title alone is, I mean, it's a real statement of intent, isn't it?
It is.
It suggests that the line we normally draw between our mental landscape, our thoughts, emotions, and the physical world of our body and how we move, it suggests that line is basically false.
And the specific focus for us, the thing that really hooks you in, comes from the subtitle. It's how your thoughts literally shape your posture and vice versa. This isn't just saying, a bad mood makes you slouch for a bit. We're talking about something much deeper, a measurable and literal structural influence.
And that little phrase, and vice versa, that is the entire engine of the premise.
Right.
It immediately creates this incredibly powerful bidirectional loop. I mean, if we accept that our thought patterns create our physical posture over time, then the reverse has to be true.
Okay.
The physical form we're in is constantly feeding information back to our brain, structuring and, reinforcing our thoughts. It's a constant negotiation between mind and matter.
Okay, so let's unpack that, because the word literally is doing some very heavy lifting here. It completely challenges the conventional view.
It does.
We talk about the mind-body connection, but usually in metaphors. So what's the implication when the source says thoughts literally shape your posture? What does that mean functionally?
It forces us to see thought as more than just an electrical signal. It's a physical force, one that requires expression. So if you have a repetitive thought, let's say chronic worry about money or maybe constant self-criticism, that pattern is a specific mental structure, and that cognitive architecture needs a physical anchor.
A physical anchor.
Yeah. Think about it. Anxiety, at its core, is the anticipation of danger. So what's the body's most ancient, most immediate response to danger?
To tense up, to protect yourself.
Contraction, bracing, exactly. So if that anxiety is chronic, the body structurally adapts to maintain that defensive posture. The source is suggesting that the mind translates the thought, I need to protect myself from some vague threat, to a physical blueprint. And the result is, hiked up shoulders, a braced diaphragm, chronic tension in your jaw.
So this isn't just a slump because you're having a long day. It's the physical printout of your mental software.
That's a great way to put it.
So if my habit is to be avoidant, my shoulders physically roll in, almost like I'm shielding my organs. And eventually that just becomes my resting state. My muscles, my bones, they all settle into that shape. But that sounds incredibly deterministic. Is the source saying we have no conscious control? Are we just slaves to our cognitive programming?
That's a crucial question. And no, it's not saying we're slaves. But it does suggest that our dominant thought patterns become the foundation that our physical structure rests on.
Okay.
Think of it like building a house on uneven ground. Eventually, the structure itself is going to show that strain, right? You'll see cracks in the walls, the floors will slope. Our cognitive grounds, our core beliefs and habits, that's the foundation for our posture.
I see.
So if that underlying thought is one of, say, chronic insecurity, the muscular system responds by creating all these microtensions to just hold the structure together. And this is where that idea of architecture really shines. Your posture becomes a kind of physical summary of every persistent psychological load you've ever carried.
Wow. It's like a three-dimensional biography of your mind.
Exactly that.
That makes incredible sense. It really pushes us away from thinking of good posture as just, a cosmetic thing. It's a structural requirement for cognitive stability.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so if that's the case, let's pivot. Let's get to the second half, the most actionable part of this whole premise, the vice versa. If my thoughts build my body, how does my body then build or reinforce my thoughts?
Right. And this is where we move from just understanding the consequence to actually being able to use the mechanism. This vice versa isn't just a concept. It's rooted in constant physiological feedback.
Okay.
Our bodies are always, every millisecond, sending data back to the brain. It's a process called proprioception, that sense of where your body is in space, the state of your muscles. So your physical form is constantly sending back signals that are consistent with a threat, a contracted chest, shallow breathing, chronic tension. Then the cognitive centers of your brain simply cannot generate high-level, expansive, confident thought. The body is effectively screaming, danger, conserve resources.
And that feedback loop just validates the original anxious thought.
It locks it in.
So that raises a really important question then. If posture is a map of our internal state, can we physically change the map to alter the landscape? Because most models tell you to change your thoughts first, which, let's be honest, is hard. You end up just arguing with yourself.
And the beauty of this architectural approach is that it bypasses that whole internal debate.
How so?
If you want to change the signal the body is sending to the mind, you don't argue with your self-doubt. You change the physical structure that's housing it.
Okay, give me an example.
Let's take the diaphragm. When we're stressed or anxious, our breathing gets shallow, right? It's all up here in the upper chest.
Right.
Structurally, the diaphragm is connected to the psoas muscle, a deep hip flexor, and that whole system braces your core. So if you intentionally open in this posture, stand up straight, sit in a way that lets the diaphragm fully defend and lets your hips unlock, you are immediately changing that physiological signal. You're sending a message of safety and resource abundance back to the brain.
So, forcing my body into a posture of confidence, straightening my spine, lifting my head, that's a non-cognitive instruction. It's not just me faking it.
It's not a trick, no.
It's literally changing the quality of the data the brain is getting. It's like I'm repositioning the satellite dish, and that changes the information it can receive.
Precisely. You are physically disrupting the blueprint of defeat. The source suggests that by altering the chronic muscular bracing that was built by years of anxious thought, you are creating a new physical container.
A new container.
And this new container supports and encourages new, more expansive cognitive patterns, simply because the physical structure is no longer organized around fear and contraction. This makes physical manipulation an incredibly direct, incredibly rapid pathway to cognitive change.
That is genuinely transformative for anyone listening. It means that self-improvement isn't always about willpower or positive affirmations. Sometimes it's just about applied biomechanics.
Yes.
If you want a more resilient mind, maybe you need to start by creating a more resilient spine.
And that leads us right back to the title of the book, The Unifying Concept, The Architecture of Thought and Form. What's so fascinating here is that it's not just saying thought and form are connected. It's saying they are structurally integrated components of a single unified system. They share the same principles.
If they share an architecture, then concepts like what? Stability, balance, load-bearing capacity, they must apply to both domains equally.
Exactly.
So what does a stable thought architecture look like, and how does that connect to physical stability?
Well, a stable physical architecture is one that uses gravity efficiently, right? It minimizes strain and chronic bracing. By extension, a stable thought architecture would be one that minimizes internal contradiction and unnecessary psychological load.
Okay, that makes sense.
When your spine is balanced and vertical, you're minimizing muscular effort. When your thoughts are balanced, when you can accept reality without all this resistance, you are minimizing cognitive effort.
And the reverse is true.
Absolutely. If the physical structure collapses, like a chronic stoop, it demands constant muscular effort. It just drains your energy. And likewise, if the cognitive structure collapses into, say, rumination or self-pity, it demands enormous psychic energy. This deep dive shows that optimizing one domain naturally optimizes the other. You can't separate them.
So the big takeaway here is that the source is showing us this deep, fundamental unity. Mental processes, physical structure, they're constantly creating each other. It's way beyond simple behavioral feedback. This is a framework of structural interdependence.
Yes.
We aren't managing two separate systems. We're optimizing one integrated operating system. So what does this all mean for you, the listener, now that you have this conceptual framework? Even without reading the entire book, the implications are immediate.
The core knowledge nugget is the validation of that bidirectional and literal nature of the mind-body link. It gives us permission to stop treating posture as some cosmetic afterthought or just a side effect of stress.
Right.
This framework challenges you to view your posture not as a consequence of thought, but as a component of thought itself. Your posture isn't just what your body is doing. It is the physical expression of your mind's current state of organization.
That's powerful.
And the application for you is huge. If you're struggling to shift a negative thought pattern, the most efficient route might be structural. You don't need a new philosophy. You might just need a physical reorganization.
For example?
For example, just noticing where you carry tension. In your jaw, your belly, your shoulders. That tells you exactly which mental patterns are dominant right now and eating up your energy. That tension is the thought made solid.
And that completely reframes things. It shifts the locus of control. Instead of fighting some nebulous feeling of anxiety, you have a specific, tangible target.
Right.
The defensive bracing in your own body.
It democratizes it.
It makes changing your state accessible because anyone right now can adjust their physical structure.
But it does require a new level of self-awareness.
Yeah.
When you find yourself collapsing into a low-energy posture, The source material is telling you you're not just tired, you are structurally reinforcing a low-energy thought pattern.
So maintaining an intentional, open posture, that becomes a constant act of proactive cognitive management.
It does.
That's the power of these deep dives, isn't it? Extracting these foundational concepts that can just instantly shift your perspective. The scope of this idea is surprising in how, radically simple it is. You are the architect of your form and therefore the architect of your thought.
And that brings us to a final provocative thought for you to consider, based only on what we've discussed, this literal and reciprocal relationship.
Okay.
If the relationship is indeed literal and vice versa, and posture is a constant stream of data flowing back to the brain, does maintaining an intentional posture basically constitute a constant, nonverbal form of self-talk?
A nonverbal self-talk.
And if it is physically adjusting your architecture the quickest, most direct path to sustainable cognitive change? Simply because you can't argue with the immediate, undeniable data of your own physical form.
A structural conversation with the self. That is something really powerful to think about the next time you adjust how you're sitting or standing. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the architecture of thought and form. We encourage you to explore these ideas further. We'll see you next time.